Okay, so welcome everyone. And I think we stopped at this worksheet where I hope if anyone wanted, they took out time to keep this alive so that we can kind of remind ourselves with these points because many a times we forget, I've also personally seen that and we can forget for many, many years. It's not that we forget for a day or 2 day and a week, a few weeks, what is my highest ideal, what do I really want to do in this life. We just forget, and I have this experience where I forgot it for years, an intense amount of suffering because I was not able to remind myself of the highest ideal somehow. So much of darkness was there. So I think these points can be really helpful just to kind of keep a constant touch with, okay, what is my highest ideal? What do I want to become? What kind of a better human being, better person I want to be, so that whatever action I take, it can be in alignment with that ideal. Because if I forget the ideal, then I don't have anything to, kind of show light. Yeah. So this was what we were reflecting upon where we ended last time. What helps me to keep that highest ideal alive in me? So it could be, sessions like these that we attend because they remind us again and again, or the books we read, or the work we do. Many a times the work is also in alignment with whatever is the highest aspiration. Or maybe you have a couple of friends, who kind of engage in day-to-day meaningful conversations, which reminds you again and again of your highest ideal. Could be anything. Maybe you have picked up a music or an art hobby which helps you keeping that aspiration alive. And then we had to ask ourselves, how will I keep reminding myself? How will you remind yourself to live from the deepest being? So anything that helps anyone, um, and it can be different for different people. There is no set formula here. Formulate short-term goals, say 7 days, that can help me to go into the right direction. So imagine that we have been wanting to change for a long time, but have not been able to. So just to give ourselves a very short-term goal, like, okay, for 4 days or for a week continuously, I will follow this discipline. I'll, say, talk to a friend about these, whatever topics, day-to-day reflections, awareness, or maybe attend sessions or write a journal, read one prayer of Mother every day, read one page of Savitri it could be just anything that you resonate with. But to do it in a discipline, like, 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, you're doing that. You're not missing it. That discipline of, while whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, doesn't matter, that really goes a long way. That really goes a long way. We have seen many elder people who have very good discipline. You must have that experience that they don't compromise with their times, that okay, I have to eat at this time, by this time I have to do my yoga. And mostly these disciplined people carry for a long time in their own joy. Like, they don't get depressed because they have something to keep themselves alive. And I have, thankfully, my father-in-law himself, he is very particular about, getting up on time, doing whatever exercises he does, listening to whatever in the morning he listens. So that it's like developing a friendship with yourself, creating a own routine, irrespective of people coming and going, doesn't matter. So that really helps, this discipline. So this is where we ended last time. Yeah. Anything from here? Anyone wants to share anything, or shall we go ahead? Okay, so I'll go ahead. Yeah, so again, just sharing with you all that we have been mostly following the Psychic Education Workbook by N. Happis. And thankfully, with the prompt by Sandeep ji, today I also got an online PDF of the workbook, which I can share with everyone. So I have a hard copy, which I follow, but it was good to have a PDF also, which can be shared with everyone. So most of the stuff in psychic education is taken up from that. So here it is shared the close companionship between being receptive and aspiring, right? So imagine that you are an artist. Now, as an artist, what do you need to do? You have an art that you follow and you want to make it better and better and better. And in wanting to make it better, what will you be doing? You will be exploring many, many arts, taking in what all they have to offer. So in that, you will need to, first of all, have an eye for art, and also a receptivity that you are ready to learn. You are very porous, like a sponge is very porous. So it kind of takes in the water that is around itself. So that receptivity or that porous character, something which goes hand in hand with aspiring towards beauty, aspiring towards more perfection. So if I am aspiring to be a better human being, then I will have to be receptive to ideas and criticisms that I will get from people, because they will be pointing to me whatever is needing improvement. If I'm very touchy, very, very sensitive, then I cannot work on myself. Because the moment somebody says something, I've taken onto my heart and I'm not able to then work on it. So if the moment somebody says something, now only thing I'm bothered with is I want to make myself a beautiful person, of a person helpful in one or the other sense. So, okay, whatever the other person said, is there any amount of truth in it that I can take for my own improvement? Very objectively taking all this criticism or whatever comes from external situations and people, then as an artist I can perform better. I can be always a better and better artist. And same thing, life is also an art. So I can be a better and better person if I am open, receptive, and aspiring to be more and more beautiful and perfect, which is a never ending journey. No one can say that I have achieved that. The more we go further, the more we realize that there is much, much more to realize and to achieve in terms of perfection. So this is what here is shared, that is, it is important to notice the areas of improvement, have a discerning eye. So if someone says that you speak a lot, and to rather cry about it, I can also think that, oh, maybe I do speak a lot, and let me see if I can have more silence in my speech rather than just blabbering of words. And there are many, many good speakers who we listen to, where we see that they have a very beautiful combination of pauses and words, and that does the magic. So we like to listen to them. We love the kind of a stability they have in their voice. So instead of crying over whatever the other person said, I can also improve my speech. Only then one is open to see the ugly and to aspire to beauty. And there is no end to beauty. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. Whatever is truth is beautiful. And whatever is beautiful is also Shiva's consciousness. It's Shiv himself. So wherever we see ugliness in ourselves, if we can hold it up in front of light and transmute it to beauty, then flowering of truth, flowering of our own true consciousness and beauty happens in us. Okay, yes, Sharda ji, yes, I think it's Meera. Yeah, I'll try to enlarge. Wait. No. Slideshow. Yeah, now it should be better, huh?
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So anyone who would like to read this? So usually we read the quotes by the mother, by someone reads the quotes. So it would be nice if one of you can read the one in italics. Anyone who wants to unmute and share?
Okay, I can read. Oh, but I aspire all the time and still receive nothing. It is impossible that they should receive nothing, in the sense that the answer is sure to come, but it is they who do not receive.
Yeah, thank you, Mira. So why is it that oftentimes we wonder that I have asked this question to the universe, but I'm not getting the answer? And Mother is sharing that it's impossible that they should not receive anything. I'm sure, all of us have experiences of putting out questions to the universe whenever we have challenges and difficult times. Some or the other form, we do get away. We all have seen that, maybe a book falls on our lap, maybe we get across a talk. Nowadays on YouTube, there are so many things happening. And maybe somebody says something and that resonates, right? So the divine works in so many different ways that if I say that the help is to come only this way, then I block myself. So there is a very beautiful story which I'll share here, then we can share reflections. So there was I think I've shared this story earlier also. There was a person who was caught in flood in his village, and he was a bhakta, like he was really a devotee of Indian gods, Hindu gods. So he started praying to Hanumanji and started calling out to Hanumanji for a long time. Nothing happened. And then he said, okay, let me change. Let me call Krishanji. And then nothing happens. And in the meantime, after he's calling Krishanji, then a helicopter comes and he says, no, 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 Krishanji is going to arrive. I am a big devotee and he would come and save me. So I'm not going to get on a helicopter, not at all. I'm going to wait. I'm a very devout bhakt. And then he waits and waits, and then another plane comes and aircraft comes to help him, but he doesn't take any help because he says that Krishanji is going to help and come. Hanuman did not come, Krishanji will come. So then he obviously dies in the flood. He drowns and he reaches, I don't know, heaven or hell. But then he's asking, he's very complaining, that, oh my God, all my life I prayed to both of you and you didn't arrive. So to Hanuman, he says, I think I'm mixing up actually two stories, but doesn't matter. The essence stays. So to Hanuman, he says that, why didn't you come? And Hanuman says, I was about to come. I was going to pick my gada up, but then you called Krishna. So I put my gada down, then, okay, let Krishna go. And then Krishna, he said, okay, why didn't you come? And the Krishna said that, oh, but I thought I sent 2 helicopters and an aircraft. No, why didn't you get up on them? So it's just to show that we all have our ideas of in what way help should arrive. And in that we block. We all have faced, such amusing experiences. That we have very rigid ideas and opinions in our mind that this is who I am, this is my philosophy, this is, what kind of life I live, and this is how help should come. These 3 ways. If help doesn't come in 3 ways, God doesn't love me, or whatever we may create in our mind. So that is how we block grace. And there was one instance in my initially when I was diagnosed with cancer. I was one day I was having a kind of doing a lying down meditation, and I was just kind of very strongly, that impression stays with me, that it was shown to me that it is me who is blocking the grace. And through meditating and through whatever opening up, actually what I am doing is I'm opening up my pores to grace. So as if from stone, I am becoming a sponge. And the grace is present like air is present around us everywhere. But since I am a block of wall, brick of wall, I can't sense it. I can't kind of, receive it. So if any experience, in life, we have so many experiences, mostly ugly experiences, mostly which are difficult ones. If they are helping me to become more porous, I think worth it. All of us have experiences which are difficult in nature, but they have opened up our hearts. They have made us more porous, receptive, kind, you know. Because we have faced unkindness, that's why I have become more kinder, you know. Same with, we were hearing other day, Dalai Lama and his friend Desmond Tutu, Archbishop, you know, who just passed away recently. Both of them having faced so much of suffering, and yet in the opposite extreme, they have this compassion and kindness for so many people, not only to their own family, but all the people around the world. So there is something very mysterious about this, the relation between suffering and us becoming open, porous. Yeah. Yeah, anyone wants to add on anything at the moment? Okay, so keep sharing. I'll just go ahead and proceed with the slides. So there are various kinds of aspiration, Mother says. The first movement, I think it would be nice if somebody else reads it and then we can reflect over it. Yeah, this is by the mother, and she's talking about aspiration, and this is just introducing, and then a mental aspiration comes. Yeah, anyone who wants to read?
May I read, madam?
Yes, please go ahead, Mohanji.
The first movement of aspiration is this. You have a kind of vague sensation that behind the universe there is something which is worth knowing, which is probably the only thing worth knowing, which is probably the only thing worth living for. The next thing you have to do is to tend this aspiration to keep it always alert, awake, and living. And for that, what is required is concentration upon the Divine Mother.
Thank you. So I think many of us don't directly start with this. We don't directly start with that there is a higher power. Maybe because of our conditioning at times, because we have been born as a materialist, that all there is to life is this body, this little life, and that is it. After that ends, you know, things end, and there is nothing more than that. So whatever is appearing, that is it, and that's all. So many a times we are kind of conditioned as a child like that, and then it becomes really hard when you want to give up, you know, when you want to say bow down and bow your head, you know, because we have this natural urge to bow down our head, you know, to something higher, that yes, there is something more than me. It cannot be just this little me that is all there in this universe. So at times we face difficulty, but then if we have the right attitude, although I may not believe in divine per se, if I have the attitude that things can always go on perfecting themselves, even that is beautiful. I don't need to believe in some divine. Even when I have this attitude of things can always go ahead towards more beauty, more perfection, that is also very propelling in nature. That's also aspiration. And then as scientists, you know, many, even Albert Einstein, if those of us who have read his quotes and his story, he had a very, very strong, through his quotes appears, you know, that something more higher and mystical than us exists. That whatever appears is not it. There is more to life than just the bodies. So in his quotes and his signs, that becomes very palpable. Some higher force, some higher intelligence, you know, that he talks of. That, for example, look at the tiniest little creature, tiniest, you know, you may not, cockroach, for example, many people hate cockroaches. How beautifully perfect, if you forget about what kind of a menace it can be for kitchens and all that, if we forget that part, if you look at the design of a cockroach and how adaptable it is, I think according to science, cockroach is the most adaptable insect and has not, like many species have been wiped away, dinosaurs have been wiped away, cockroaches have been not wiped away. You know, such kind of intelligence, remarkable, that they can live in drains and, you know, pipes with lot of muck for a long time and not die unless somebody storms over them. And so we see that even in very little creatures, very perfect intelligence is working. So then one wonders that there must be something more to life than whatever we see. You know, there is some higher intelligence in operation, which I cannot see and perceive, but through these works of art, like an insect or a flower, how beautiful it is, indirectly I can have a sense, perception that yes, you know, which intelligence is creating all this. So one bows to something higher. So the first movement, mother says, of aspiration is that you have a vague sensation. It's not very clear and crisp, but something vague, that behind the universe there is something which is worth knowing, which is probably the only thing worth knowing, which is probably the only thing worth living for. The next thing you have to do is to tend to this aspiration, to keep it alive, you know, to keep it always alert, awake, and living. So to live in, that's why we would call it mysticism. You know, it has a kind of a mystery around it. Masters and mystics we call, because they are very connected to this intangible mystery of the universe. And even if we see the whole expanse of universe unending, you know, has any scientist reached, okay, this is the border of universe, here universe ends? We have not. You know, we know 8 planets, and then more come up, you know, more dwarf planets are coming up, more and more galaxies are being found out, as if there is no end to universe. And one wonders, you know, just like divine, we say, is infinite, universe is also infinite. And not only universe, this being who we see just as ending towards where the body ends, I also end. Close your eyes and go into your heart for a moment. You will not reach the boundary of your heart. Unending. Such is the mystery that in this limited, seemingly limited body, we can go as far as we want to go in the depths of our heart. Isn't that beautiful? You know? And it seems on the surface, it seems, okay, this hand starts here, ends here. You know, it may seem like that, but appearances deceive. You know? And even I have shared earlier also that even when we talk about quantum physics, it may appear as a solid hand. This hand may appear as a solid hand, but if you go close, there is no solidity here. You know, there is a continuous exchange of atoms, electrons in the surface around the hand and the hand. So there is no border one can see. You know? So it's very fluid. And that's why they say that many a times, you know, Alan Watts, for example, if you have heard of that master, Alan Watts, he says, where are you ending and where is the air starting? You know, there is no start and there is no disconnect. It's like a continuity. And just like that, you know, I also get reminded of once I was staring at a mountain, and it appears to me that where is the mountain ending? Where is the stone starting? Where is the tree ending? Where is the animal standing on the mountain ending? So as if there is no separation. And the more I believe in this separation, the more I create havoc for myself. Just like that, whatever we have done to earth, you know, we have done havoc on earth as human beings, because I believe myself to be ending here, so that all the garbage I can put in the river. So I'm believing in a separate identity. You know, I end here, the river starts there. But we all know now, by now this much of intelligence we have, that that doesn't end there. It is going to come back to my food. So the more we live with this oneness, we become less violent, and we cannot hurt others. And many masters have also said that people who truly realize who they truly are, it is impossible that they can hurt other beings. They cannot. It's not a choice that they have. It's only in our ignorance of knowing ourselves as a separate entity that we begin to hurt. So what is the solution? The only solution is to realize who you are. Stop the ignorance. So this goes very far, this little sentence seems like 3 lines, but really a very deep one. And then Mother talks about mental aspiration and vital aspiration and physical aspiration. So as a human being, we are, those of us who are in touch with integral education or yoga, we know that we have mind, we have thoughts, then we have feelings, which we call vital or emotional part of our being. And then we have the physical body, which is the physical aspect, the body, the cells, the physical being. So Mother says that aspiration can arise either from the mental, from the vital, the feeling level, or from the physical level. It doesn't matter where it starts from. An aspiration is aspiration. And then she also talks about the psychic aspiration. That's also there. So let us read about these different kinds of aspiration. Anyone who would like to unmute and read what mental aspiration is? Yeah.
I'll go, Monica. A mental aspiration means that the thought power aspires to have knowledge, for instance, or else to have the power to express itself in clear ideas, a logical reasoning. All the faculties and capacities of the mind may be developed and placed at the service of the divine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in my thoughts, what do I want? I want clarity. All of us have, experience with that when we are confused, we want to arrive to a clear perception in our head. We don't like to be confused. Confusion is uneasy for us. So a mental aspiration means that the thought power, thought is a power. Mother has said this, that imagination is a power, thought is a power. That's another fact, that we don't use it as a power. We are usually puppeted around by thoughts rather than using it as a power. So when we begin to have more mastery in ourselves, then we can use thought as a power, use it wisely. That's the whole big idea. So the mental aspiration means that the thought power aspires to have knowledge, for instance, or else to have the power to express itself in clear ideas, a logical reasoning. So I have this aspiration in me. I see in me that whenever I express, I fumble. I see that whenever I want to express, inside there is something else going on, but when it comes out, I'm not able to express it well in words and thoughts, right? It happens with us. So to have that aspiration, that whatever I say out in expression or in thought or in words, that may come out as clear as possible. And also with a deeper knowledge, touching the deeper aspects, not only on the surface, but I'm able to touch through my power of thought, the deeper knowledge. So that is an aspiration. I think most of us would resonate with this, that we have this innate aspiration that we want to express and think clearly, like not jumbled up chaotic thoughts, but clear-headed. Mother says sorting the mind, for example, so putting where everything belongs, putting it there. Just like we do, how good we feel when we are doing Diwali Safai and the other things, we feel good about it because everything is proper. Whatever you wanted to give away, you have given, and whatever you wanted to keep, you have kept, and you know where everything belongs, in which drawer. So like this sorting and organization is within my being, which gives rise to clear thought, and deeper touch. And then mother says, then all the faculties, what is the idea behind this mental aspiration is all the faculties and capacities of the mind may be developed. So it's good to develop imagination. It's good to develop thinking, tark vitark, as we say, logical reasoning, and then to place it as a service of the divine. This is the whole idea. And what do we mean by divine? That we don't stop or we don't limit ourselves. We always move towards more and more perfection. For those people who can't connect with the idea of the divine, we can connect with perfection. That, okay, I'm not able to, as at the moment, get what the other person is saying, but I want to understand what the other person is saying, although no matter how seemingly opposite he may appear. So what is this I'm trying to do? That I'm trying to make my mind more wide and more supple and flexible, which can kind of, take even the opposing ideas and bring something out of it. So this is very crucial because Sri Aurobindo says that supermind, for example, he talks of the supermind and a supramental race, where all the opposites come together. So I'll be able to easily talk to my enemy, for example, and not have clashes with my enemy. Usually we are so used to this that, oh, he's my enemy, I'll have a clash with him. That's how it works. We are used to it. That's how our countries, we're always at war with each other. India is not agreeing with Pakistan. Pakistan is not agreeing with somebody else, everywhere. So whatever we do on individual level, we escalate that on a global level. And if India is today, whatever, is just a representation of what we are individually as a citizen of India. So if I change my consciousness, if I become more supple, India will become supple. And we'll be able to, as countries together, move towards harmony, beauty, and progress rather than fighting each other, which we do. And not only as nations, but also as organizations. Most of the organizations are fighting with each other, who is more famous, for example, rather than saying that, okay, let us contribute together. Okay, let us work for the welfare of society together. Usually companies don't say that. They're always at war with each other. So here we get this idea that mentally I'm able to be more supple, more wide, so that the sense of separation that we have so strongly in ourselves, that ends and a kind of a oneness comes into being, that we are all one, and let us take all the positives that each one has. Everybody has some positives. Everybody has some truth in their expression. So let us take that truth, take each drop from everyone. So anyone wants to share at this moment? Yes, Sandeep ji.
Thank you. Thanks, Monica ji. There might be some background noise comes up. I am just finding a quieter place. Yeah. So the way we discussed, now let us put all those things into perspective. Just I'll not take much time. What I mean for aspiration is, when the term aspiration comes, it generally, we have to understand, it is only it for in our entire being. It is just not my mind, not just my vital, not just my any of the psychic, or it is entirely in all the beings. I need the divine only. So whatever I do, whatever I think, whatever I desire, or practically I am doing or thinking, or I'm aspiring for, it has to be connected with the divine. Divine should be in the center. Rest all the things, it is not like that we will not do. We will do everything, but is the divine is the center of all those my aim is not aim or not. If that is there, then yes, everything is fine. And as we clear give sometimes I go to schools and we give examples, right? So whatever I achieve in my life, let's say suppose I have a very I'm working in a very multinational company, very big company, that is again a big zero actually. Again, I have a bigger house, one more zero I have added in my life. For after zero is adding with the zeros, keep on adding zeros. Is there any value? No. If I put a one in front of all those zeros, then every zero would have been, all those zeros are counted, and that one is only the divine. So whatever I do, whatever I think, but if everything is in a constant way, it is gathering it is momentum, and towards it is it's a flame actually, and raising towards the divine, then only everything is matters. Same way the mental aspiration, whatever we are talking about here, right? So the mother is touching everything. So if you can clearly you can put that slide back, for that reference. So she is clearly telling all those things we have to do. Thought power, aspire to have knowledge, for instance, or else to have the power to express itself. These are the highest possible a mind can achieve at its best, right? And what everything is saying, it's some clear ideas, logical reasoning. These things are highest level of mind, mind in its utmost level. These things it can do. It can itself contain the absolute knowledge. Mind doesn't have that capacity, but what it can do, it can work as a bridge between the mind and the supermind. It can take the evolution forward towards that. So mind has that capability. So for that, whatever the things in the highest level of mind, everything we have to do, including logical reasoning. Why reasoning, I will tell you later. All the faculties and capacities of the mind may be developed. Whatever is possible, it has to be developed. But the last line is most important. The last phrase, placed at the service of the divine. If I will put those all those activities, and I will at the service of myself, my ego, or for, let's say, some society, or for the country, or whatever, doesn't matter, it has to be placed on the service of the divine. Then only it can be called as true aspiration, a mental aspiration. Okay, so logical reasoning also will come. Why? Let's say suppose how we can develop. Just for an example, as 3 p.m. Monica ji has set up a session over here, right? My mind will I am into multiple things. My mind will come, and generally in my highest level of logical reasoning, it will say, no Sandeep, do these things, you will be better benefited with some money, with some profit, blah blah xyz. It will show you all those things. You can spend time with family, they need more, today is Sunday, all those things it can tell. But there is one more thing behind. No, this time I should, I have committed to the mother that no, I will be attending the session, because there only the all those things can be organized. So there you can put your logical reasoning over there. So no, everything else can take a side, but this has to be on the priority. By this practice only, this aspiration can be always we can put fuel into that. Otherwise we have a lot of things to do. We also know that we have n number of things to do in our life, and that is a never ending story. Nobody will come and tell that no, I have finished my thing, now I will do that. That will not happen. You have to take your time out of your own time, whatever your time you are spending, so called our own time. From there we have to make way for this kind of thing. So this is the way, one of the example I just shared, that we can develop this kind of mental inspirations. And the main thing, again I will repeat, this has to be placed at the service of the divine, nowhere else. This is one thing I want to. Thanks, Monica ji, for allowing gratitude to the divine.
Thank you so much, Sandeep ji. Beautiful examples. Yeah. I think this about reasoning, it's a very good thing that you touched. Mother says that reason is there because our emotions are so unruly. So reason is there as a regulator, just like we have for fans, we have regulator. So for the life force, for this restless energy in us, which usually is spent in emotions and mostly negative kind of emotions, more jealous, more anger, hate, like these negative emotions, mostly it takes that stage. So reason is there so that it can kind of be regulating the emotions, because emotions are very powerful and unruly. And she also, I think I remember reading it in one of the books by Dr. Ramesh Bijlani on integral education, where he was sharing that, as Sandeep ji touched upon, that the more we go closer to truth, then reason begins to support, instead of the unruly emotions, it begins to support truth. That as Sandeep ji shared, that now you begin to reason that, okay, why would you like to be in the session rather than doing something else? So you are using the same reasoning ability, but for supporting the truth rather than to support the egoistic, emotions or more demands and expectations in life. So beautiful that you touched upon it. Yeah. I think we had touched upon it earlier also when we were doing the mental and vital education in this series. Yeah. Yeah, anyone wants to add on, or any question, any doubt, anyone? Sorry for that. Yes, okay, so let's go ahead, in case there is no reflection. So this was mental aspiration, and it's not that we have covered it fully, we are just touching upon it. So feel free to explore yourself when you are at home, to see what mental aspiration is in yourself, and also if through the words of Mother and Sri Aurobindo you want to go ahead. Then she talks about vital aspiration. So if one of you can read this, would be really nice.
Vital aspiration. If you have desires or troubles, storms, inner difficulties, you may aspire for peace, to be quite impartial, without desire or preference, to be a good, docile instrument, without any personal whims, always at divine's disposal. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think this is very, very important for us, because mostly we live at this level, right? And that's why in Hindi bhajans, people call the world as Bhav Sagar, like a sagar or a sea or an ocean of bhavnai, of emotions, overwhelm, Bhav Sagar. And in dreams also, in dreams interpretation also, if you are seeing in your dreams like stormy and very heavy seas with full of waves, it reflects that one is going through an emotional turmoil. And I had a personal experience of having that in a dream, so just kind of stating that also. Yeah. So emotions, in emotions, vital aspiration, the aspiration coming out of the vital being. If you have desires or troubles, storms, inner difficulties, you may aspire for peace. All of us feel very, very disturbed and in non-peace when we have troubles and difficulties in our life. So what do I do then when I am in a difficult situation? I aspire for peace, that may I progress towards deeper peace in this life, to be quite impartial, because usually we are taking sides, and that's where we get into trouble. Whenever we are taking sides, we get into trouble. So it's just a beep beep kind of a red signal that wrong way, without desire or preference. So since I see myself in desires and troubled by desires. Hence, what is the aspiration arising? May I be without desires. May I be without likings, preferences, or attachments. Or to be a good, docile instrument without any personal whims, always at divine disposal. So I think this does not come, at least in my experience, this does not come into being before I have faced enough challenges and turmoils. Once I have tasted the rubbishness of those, it's actually very rubbish where we put ourselves into, mostly the mental and emotional suffering that we inflict on ourselves, because of the ego. Physical pain still, one has to go through it. But the emotional and mental suffering that we inflict on ourselves, following our own desires and likings, and this is what I want, why is this not happening, and this will happen, I'll make this happen. How much of intense suffering we go through that, because of that. So once I have suffered through that, then I have this really intense need that I don't want to go there. I have lived that enough. And I know that a better living is possible. So I don't want to be a slave to the egoistic consciousness anymore. And then I desire that, not desire, but kind of a deep aspiration arises out of the being for more peaceful living, more simple living. And we see that simple living is possible when I don't have much preferences and desires. Because I have seen that desires play havoc, really play havoc, and they actually tear the being in shreds. So if once I have tasted that, just sharing my own experience, that without tasting that turmoil and without tasting that really nasty thing in oneself because of the following the dictates of desires, I cannot put anything at divine's disposal. It only comes once I have tasted what it brings. So if you have not tasted it, for those of us who have not tasted it, who are not convinced yet, it's good to taste. That's why a Kabir would say, "Daudat daudat daudiya, jahan lagi man ki daud thake man sthir bhaya, to vastu thor ki thor." He does not say that man sthir bhaya in the first line. Mind is still in the first line, he does not say. He says, I ran and ran and ran in all directions, wherever I wanted to run. And then after I ran enough and I was tired and still not getting the thing that I wanted, which is absolute peace, happiness, lasting happiness, daud thake man sthir bhaya. Now I am convinced that this lasting happiness that I am looking for, I'm not going to find it anywhere. In myself, in my being, in the divine, I'm going to get that. Then the mind can be still. So for those of us who are still maybe young and are not yet convinced that I would not get it anywhere, I think this is a beautiful opportunity to go and run. That's why Mother says that better than tamas or inertia is following one's passions. So go after passions. Even there, since the destination is only one, no one has ever found lasting happiness anywhere in the world, in anything, any person, any situation. So the destination is only one. Whether I come to it after many lifetimes or come to it right away, that's my choice, if I can say. Yeah, I think if we would have any sharing at this, because it's a very important, I believe it's vital aspiration is something which is crucial, and if you have anything to share, please unmute, share.
Yeah, actually, Monica, I wanted to ask this question at the mental aspiration, but then I thought I'll wait, and it got answered with the vital, because see, again, like typically now schools are starting, right? And we've again got another wave. But besides the wave, I think what I was, obviously the conflict, or rather the turmoil, I would say, was my daughter again has to go to boarding for 3 days in a week. And that is, so it's, it's a Yeah, so this is something that I thought that, yeah, it answered very, I mean, just now what I was probably thinking about. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Yeah, anyone who wants to add on?
Yeah, so I was able to observe this today actually. So one of my friends had called us for lunch somewhere outside, right? And there was so much of news regarding the rising cases and all that. So, you know, one part of me in the mind, I was thinking that no, I should not go because, you know, it not only puts me at risk, but everyone else at home in the apartment. But then, so I messaged her saying that, you know, I would not come. But then there was this very strong thing from inside, you know, why is it that I have to always say no? Like, you know, why can't I just go? Like, how long is this going to go on for? So it was like very confusing actually. I was, yeah, I took a decision, but still there was this huge dissatisfaction that came in saying that, you know, why is this always like this? Because everyone else is free to go. I'm the only one stuck in this decision making. And that's because I'm thinking in two ways.
Yeah. So Meera, what you just touched upon, I think we are going to, if I'm not wrong, we are going to touch upon maybe today or maybe in the next session, the same thing. And Mother says that if you really want to live a life where you are rid of desires, likings, preferences, and attachment to your own ideas, then if you want to test whether what I wanted to do is a desire or a need, and there is a little hint that Mother gives, and I found that very important. We may have talked about it earlier also. So just pointing towards that Mother says that imagine that you wanted does not happen. If you feel even a bit of disappointment, that's desire.
Wow.
So I thought that was a really brilliant test. And it seems to me that all our things are mixed with desires. And our task is to purify them, you know, to
Yeah.
purify them. So yes, I wanted to go, but I wasn't able to. And can I be, okay, I see a bit of ripple of disappointment, but I don't want to go there. You know, I have seen that there was a mixture of desire, and it's okay. You know, I have other things to do. Yeah. So I think that really help me, because then it tells me where I am. You know, it tells me the ground where I am, because whether I am working from desires or whether I am working like a divine servant. Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful, Monica. Very, very nicely said. This is going to help, you know, everybody. You know, we can put a stop. We can take a back for 1 minute. Then we can check with us. No need for anybody to come and tell us, no, this is your desire, this is your aspiration. But we ourselves can check. Beautiful, huh? Beautiful.
Yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
for sharing.
Yeah.
We can
Nice
at
test.
least
Yes, very, very brilliant. I think as you rightly said, Sharda ji, that then I don't need to ask anyone whether this is a desire or an aspiration. Usually we are asking, you know, and it's okay to ask also, but then Mother is making us independent, that you be your own in charge, and you check what is your temperature, like inner thermometer. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. My husband was asking me, few weeks back, what is the difference between aspiration and desire? And so the same day you shared something in the group, regarding this. I forwarded it to him, so he is very happy. The same thing is coming again, but which is very, very beautiful. Within 2 minutes we'll be able to understand where we stand and where we have to go. Beautiful.
Exactly. And then what we can do is that then we can take a step back, that okay, let me not go with this flow that I wanted, because usually we spoil our mood if we are not able to go, and we do all kinds of things under the vital impulses. So when I see this happening, and now I have heard the word of the Mother, then I know that okay, let me step back and do whatever good with this time possible I can do, and it helps us reclaim the power back. So yeah, very helpful. Yes. Sandeep ji, you wanted to add on something?
Just one example, came to my mind. So Nirakar Bhai used to share this actually when they were starting, after knowing the mother and Shivanto. So they used to roam around and do the study circles and all at home. So there was a district collector. He was newly appointed. So at his house also, one study circle, he arranged it. So he asked this question, right? So there was a discussion for aspiration and need and desire. So he asked, suppose you come by, I go by a car, right? So you tell me whether this is a desire for me or an need. So Nirakar was beautifully explained. See, for you it is always a need because you are a collector, okay, and you are in some village, let's say suppose for some work, and chief minister calls you. You cannot go by a cycle as I do. For me, cycle is enough because I have limited area to cover. Because as you are a collector, for you, car is a need. But for me,
You got muted, Sandeep ji, after for me. Yes.
so so yeah, that like that we can easily. That is actually nobody else should decide for me. Actually, I have to put myself into the Azure edge, and then we have to ask. It is not like always excuses will come whenever you will try and define something right between this differentiate. So there is always will excuse come. No, this is the time you should go for, and this. So it is a need. It will beautifully put some logic and it will explain you. But if you really sincere enough to judge yourself, where we should not put ourselves as an advocate but as a judge, a clear in a Rajur edge, then it is quite clear actually that what is need and what is aspiration, desire and all. Thanks, that's what I wanted to
Yeah.
share.
Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. I think that was a very good example, the collector and yeah, whatever example the yeah. Yeah. And that's why truth has never got a formula. As you said, that for that person, car is a need. He needs to do certain things which are not possible without a car. But for other, it may be actually a matter of desire. And yeah. So this, I think this is really helpful because mother says that it's a joy to step back from your desires and to taste that joy. I think it's not only reserved for a few people, but for all of us. It's birthright, I believe. It's our birthright to taste that joy, which we experience when we step back from our desires. And it can be even in a spiritual context. For example, imagine that I have to go to Mother's Ashram. Now, it's a very spiritual thing. Mother's Ashram, I am a devotee, I have to go. Now, somehow that thing doesn't happen. And if I see a certain amount of disappointment in me, then what I'm actually doing is I'm making myself dependent on the external situation. My joy is not now dependent on the external situation. And in that I sulk. I made my mood bad. That, oh, it was Mother's Ashram and I wanted to go, how intensely, but I was not able to go, what rubbish, or whatever. So I think even in these spiritual matters, it's also very beautiful to test ourselves that mother is everywhere. Mother and Sri Aurobindo, they are not just in the ashram. Yes, their presence is more palpable in the ashram, but they are everywhere. They are not dependent on the body. Mother is in our hearts. So when I step back, okay, the plan got cancelled and I'm stepping back, I feel that I'm more able to sense the presence of mother in my heart now, owing to the fact that I was not able to go to the physical location. So I think, and that's the joy that we get. So it was a kind of a desire that I wanted to go and I felt a disappointment, but then I stepped back, went into my heart and found the mother there. So greater joy. And Dr. Alok Da, he was once sharing this example where I think it was a day before his birthday where he wanted to go to mother's ashram and maybe they allow people to go and sit in the room. So he was not somehow allowed to. And then he said that the experience he had when he was not allowed to go into the room and then rather stayed in his own flat or wherever he was, that depth of mother's touch that he felt was much, much stronger than if he had been granted access or whatever. Because I think we go much deeper into the feeling level if the physical things don't happen. And this I also see with human love. If people are far away from us and owing to some or the other situation, we are not able to meet, a depth of love grows if we are truly connected. We grow in love. Rather than if we are there with each other all the time, we take each other for granted. That. So it helps us with growing deeper in our emotions, having deep love, which is not dependent on circumstances. So whether the person is physically there or not, he's always a part of my being, for example. Yeah. So let us touch upon, so this was what was shared, vital aspiration. And before going to spiritual, since we already were discussing this thing, desire versus aspiration. So let us maybe touch upon this. Yeah. This is what I was sharing. Since it has already come and we talked about it. Mother is sharing how to detect a desire in ourselves. This is what we were talking about. So if one of you can read the thing in italics, then we can reflect over it. I can read.
For that, you must observe yourself very, very attentively. And if there is anything in you, something like a small intense vibration, then you may be sure that there lies a desire. For example, you say, this food is necessary for me. To know if it is a need or desire, you must look at yourself very closely and ask yourself, what will happen if I cannot get that thing? Then if the immediate answer is, oh, it will be very bad, you may be sure that it is a matter of desire. It is same for everything, mother.
Thank you. Yes. So I think this is something which we can keep at all times with us as a mantra, little mantra or a little kind of a key. And why this? Because, I think there is a even greater reason to this, that we cannot find lasting happiness anywhere else in the world. Why? Why we can't find that? Because lasting happiness is our true nature. And that is why Kabir's couplet, where he talks about this deer who has fragrance in his navel, but he keeps on looking, where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? So we are also looking for that lasting happiness, a happiness that never goes away. Temporary happinesses everyone has. But we want something that stays with us. And in that we cling to people. For example, if my child got me happiness at one point of time, I cling to my child because I think that will bring me happiness. But has it ever happened with us? The same person who we fell in love with at one point of time, the same person is in front of me and now I don't feel any love. That has happened with many of us. So the idea is that lasting happiness is our true nature. And that is why it cannot be gotten from any person, any life situation, or anything that is fleeting. When I desire, and I make my desire in a sense that if that does not happen, oh my God, what will happen? Then I'm making my happiness dependent on that thing. And that is false. That's not the truth. And that's why we really undergo a lot of struggle and suffering when we run after our desires. Because in desiring or craving, what am I telling? I'm telling I cannot be happy without this thing. But that is not true. You can be happy because it's in your navel, it's in your deep heart that the true happiness lies. And that is why stepping back from desires is deeper joy. Why? Because then when we step back from desires, we touch our deeper being, which is the source of joy. So I think this is very, very good, that to keep this very, very important, that whenever things are happening, and things will keep on happening in our lives, to notice where the excitement happens, both the things. Mother is not only talking about disappointment. So for example, how we can use it? Imagine that we plan to meet with a friend, and that friend you have been wanting to meet for a long time. Now suddenly things happen and the meeting is cancelled. Two things that you can take this. Either you become very disappointed, become sulking in mood, or you take it in your stride that, okay, doesn't matter. It means that you are in charge of happiness. Now imagine that the meeting happens and I become very excited. So that excitement also tells me that there is a pinch of desire mixed up with that, say, the meeting. So when I see that ripple of excitement, that, oh, yes, it's going to happen, and something in me is excited, I just have to be aware of that excitement and to know that that mixture of desire was there. Just that. It's not that you should not meet the friend. Meet the friend still, but in a stepped back position, that I am the one who is responsible for my inner happiness. And whether I meet a friend or do not meet a friend, that should not decide whether I'm going to stay joyous or not. So Mother is giving us back the charge of our own joy through this test. Yeah, so this was what I think we can actually close today here, because then we go on deeper into aspiration. So yeah, any reflections here, anyone?
I will just share one thing. I mean, this sounds very nice, yes, and something that one should try and follow more and more. But if I look at it, from the perspective of my life, for example, it's also very difficult because I mean, what I hear, or one tends to get lost also, right, in life, in daily life, and you start running after, or I start running after goals, and you put in effort towards those goals, and setting a goal isn't without detachment, at least for me. So then there is this whole idea of a future, or of how it should turn out, say professionally. Most of us will work hard or would want the next promotion, and similarly in personal sphere also, if you want to lose weight, you'll put in effort, and if at the end it doesn't result in anything, then it'll hurt, and that's a desire. So I can't see, if I look at my life today, it's actually, the show is being completely run by desires, goals, I don't know what to call them, but so to have a certain sense of detachment is what I see is necessary, but not there yet. But I don't see how I can live a life without desires or goals. I don't know if I can club them together in the same category, of there's any difference, because otherwise, I don't know. I mean, I mean, the new year has started, and somebody this morning was just telling me that, jot down 10 things that you'd want to do in this year. So there isn't that in itself a desire, and how do you I don't know. So what is the right way then to not have those 10 things that I want to do in this year, and just let the life roll day by day?
Yeah. So I think, Shreya, what you touched upon is very, very important. Why? Because Mother has shared, and that is our experience also, that the journey of human life is from the desiring self to the true individuality, the true self. That's our journey. We start from desire, and there is a purpose to desire. It's not for a wrong reason that desire have just happened by chance. No, Nothing is by chance, everything is part of some important, intelligent reason. And mother says, desire is the helper, desire is the bar. So I am totally with you when you say that I can't see a life possible at the moment without any desire. Why? Because to move myself from the tamas, desire is important. So intense passions, intense movements of emotions are important to move myself from the inertia. If I fall into love, so-called falling into love, then I will travel kilometers to meet a person. But otherwise, I am a lazy couch potato, I don't move. So what is that desire to meet that person doing? It is moving me. So at least you are moving a step more. I would say, a mother would say, step higher than the tamasic kind of inertia wali state, right? But then once we have suffered through desires, which is our own individual journey, and we all suffer through desires, right? There comes a point when we are not able to get that fulfillment through our desires that we want, and hence the suffering comes. I meet a person because it seems to give me fulfillment, but the more I meet, I realize, oh my God, what is happening? I'm not getting that fulfillment from that person anymore, or that job, or whatever, it may be. So once I begin to suffer through my desires and following after desires, then something or the other shakes within. Because I want that progression, I want that joy. Everyone is searching for that joy, right? So through that suffering, something or the other, if there is an intensity in me that yes, I want to achieve joy in life, you will be guided through various means and directions that you stumble on your true self. And as mother said, the journey is from the desiring self to the true self. So what I do is I move from tamas, inertia. I desire. I'm not finding that joy. I'm not finding that happiness, lasting happiness. I suffer. Now the suffering is enough. I've suffered too much. Now what is the solution? And now I become a seeker. No, I am seeking that truth. I'm seeking that lasting happiness. And in that we come close to these words of mystics, which resonate with our heart. And we say, okay, it must be within me if I'm not able to find without. So I would say, as I was, suggesting, this is what I feel at the moment, not that it is the kind of the only thing, that run as long as you can and towards whatever attracts you. Because one day, waking up has to happen. It is our destiny. So if not in this life, waking up to who you truly are, eternity has enough lifetimes. Doesn't matter. It's us as human beings, we feel that, oh my God, little time, right? But eternity has many, many lifetimes. And mother says it's a win-win situation. Divine certitude, victory is going to happen. And the victory is that we all are going to realize our true self. Whether we make effort for it right now, or if I'm not convinced, not right now, later, doesn't matter. The divine is very, very patient. Okay? And the divine is not a being outside of us. That also is very important to realize. It's not a being sitting outside of us who is making decisions. So yeah, that's what I would like to share here. If anyone wants to share something, please. Yeah, so Snehi is sharing, but accumulating enough material wealth and comforts should also be a goal. Why not? Why not? Whatever I need, what I think for my comfort. I think we all have done that, haven't we? We all, either we are doing it or we have done that. So it's important to collect whatever you want to collect. Why is it important? Because after we have collected enough, we realize that that is not filling my void. So not to say that I have to become a beggar, live a beggar like life, not at all, not at all. So you live a life of whatever decent life that we want, and we work for it, we put effort for it, but just knowing that that's not going to fulfill the void that all of us feel. What is going to fulfill the void? Only the divine, as the mother says. And what is the divine? In this context, how I can put it is, the more closer I become to my own being, the more intimate I have a relationship with myself, the more deeply in touch with my true being I am, then my life, Shreya was saying that my life is just run by desires. What happens is, just like a flower oozes out its fragrance. So whatever tasks I do, it's an oozing out of my true self. You can't help but be beautiful. You can't help but to spread out that beauty that you have found within. That's our blossoming. That's the flowering of ourself. So the more intimate I become in connection with myself, I work on myself, I am doing whatever is important in my life, I am nurturing my inclination, tendencies, and natural talents that I may have, abilities that I may have. And in that, whatever happens is like a spillage. It's spilling out of me. So we spill beauty out. The more intimately we are in touch with our true essence. So that is not to say that we have to live a life of a beggar. We have to do whatever little needs and comforts we want in our life, just to be aware that that's not going to fulfill me. Because if all the material comforts were going to give lasting happiness, Ambani, or whatever biggest guy, he would be the most happiest person on this world. But is that so? Is that so? Have you met any person who has lots of wealth, and the wealth he claims that has given him happiness? We have never met that person. Maybe you do. Many of us may still be kind of wanting to meet, and who knows that we find a person like that. But so far, it seems that external things like wealth, power, money, or people, situations, it seems more and more that they are not responsible for giving us happiness. Just that. It's not that we cannot have them in life. All of us have. That's how somehow the life is. So to have all of that and to still live in detachment is the challenge. To hold them very gently, not very in a clingy nature. Yeah. Yes, Nandini.
Yeah, there's a story of Rockefeller. No? I'm not sure if this thing. So to put it in short, obviously he was one of the. I mean, he was the richest man on the planet, I guess, and then at 52, I think he was diagnosed with some kind of a disease. I'm not sure what, but it sort of, his entire body was, I think he sort of lost all its ability in any sense. And then I think in that process at that point, or I think there was a state of probably whatever awakening, he was guided to distribute his wealth. And as he started to give it to charity and foundations and this thing, his health started becoming better and better. And he lived till 93 or 94, I think. And then he, of course, he died peacefully in good health. And so that was one of the, I think there was a story. I mean, it had sort of been published in one of the journals.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes. I think this, the joy of giving, we all have seen. We all have seen that even if you have little, and especially, usually we are always giving out surplus. That, okay, I have 10 rupees, I only need 1, 9 are extra, let me give 9, whatever, So surplus I'm mostly giving. I think there is actually a greater joy which all of us have to feel or maybe have felt when we give what we actually might need. To give that away, what a joy. And why that joy? Because it tells you that, oh, I was not dependent on that even, which I felt so crucial for me. So yeah, thank you for bringing that forward. Yeah, absolutely. Resonates. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah, we are just ending anyway. So thank you, everyone. Anything anyone wants to add on? Yes, Sandeep ji. Yes. So let us, so I am okay to stay actually, if we want to. Sandeep ji, you have anything to add on more? Because since we are in the,
Yeah, just came
Flow.
out actually,
Yeah.
but nice question. And this kind of things, questions are should encourage. We should encourage, and people should be very, very clear on that. One thing I would like to end over here, because we are already running late. It is not problem with accumulating or enjoying whatever the divine gives us. Okay, no problem in that. Problem comes whenever we are getting attached to it. Then only problem. So mother tells, if it is coming, don't hesitate to accept it. Okay, it is fine to have those things with you, whether the power, wealth, or whatever. But if it is going, then don't think otherwise. Then why the divine is taking away from this me? These things, if it is this kind of attitude, if we can develop within ourselves, then we are actually capable of holding them those things actually with us. We are not capable because we tend to fall into attachment, and whenever the things was going away from us, we feel sad, depressed, and kind of blaming the divine also comes. Why you taken away from all those things? These kind of things we need to develop, the kind of equality we should have. So that is why I wanted to share. And people should ask this kind of question. Thanks for asking, Snehi. I think nice. Thank you.
Yes, yes, absolutely with you. And I think when the Buddha said attachment is the cause of suffering, I think it's very, very clear how we suffer when we either get, as Sandeep ji was sharing, attached to wealth, that my happiness is dependent on wealth, or on this person or that person, or on me going to this place or not going to this place. So in whatever we cling to, suffering comes, we become miserable. And why? Because we kind of as if sway away from our true essence, which can actually never happen, but in thoughts we get lost, as if this is not happening, there is something lacking in my life. And that is untrue. That is untrue, and that's why we suffer. So this is very relevant, that it's not that we cannot enjoy, but whatever we enjoy, we must not be clinging to it. I think that has to be kept in mind. Yes. And even when we cling, we will suffer after some time. So the suffering will tell that the way is not right. We all learn through our own experiences. So all of us, I think most of us may have such experiences, that wherever we have been clinging or attaching ourselves to, either clinging to my thoughts, my opinions, my ideas, or clinging to a person or a life situation or money or anything, or beauty or whatever, physical thing, we suffer. And that tells us what is the right way. So yeah. Yeah, anything anyone wants to add on? Sharda ji, were you saying something? I thought you unmuted.
No, nothing.
Okay. ठीक है फिर. Okay, then thank you everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for all the questions and reflections and examples and sharing, and wishing all of us always lasting happiness and joy. Yeah. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
madam.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.